Every 5 years, the UAE conducts a census. The results are published by the Federal Competitiveness and Statistics Center, a government body whose existence most people who have lived in Dubai for a decade could not name. The 2023 census results, released without a press conference, without a media campaign, and without any of the promotional infrastructure that normally accompanies official UAE data, contained a number that has not appeared in a single tourism board communication, a single Emaar Properties investor presentation, or a single government speech about Dubai's extraordinary growth. The number is this: the population of Dubai in 2023 was lower than the population of Dubai that the same government had projected for 2023 in its 2015 master plan. Not lower than the peak, lower than the plan. The city that has spent 30 years telling the world it grows faster than anyone expects has, by its own previous projections, grown slower. And the reason it grew slower is not in the census. The reason is in the departure data, in the visa cancellations, in the container shipments going the other direction, in the forwarding addresses. Millions of people have built their lives in Dubai and then, quietly, without announcement, decided that those lives were better continued somewhere else. The UAE government knows exactly who they are, exactly when they left, and exactly what category of visa they held when they did. That data exists. It is just not the data anyone is asked about at press conferences. If you come here because you want the kind of analysis that reads what governments publish rather than what they announce, you already know what to do. Dubai's population is not what most people think it is. The city does not have a population in the conventional sense of the word, the way London or Tokyo or São Paulo have populations, meaning people who were born there, grew up there, built generational roots there, and will in all probability die there. Dubai has residents. The distinction is legal, economic, and structural. Approximately 92% of Dubai's population at any given moment holds residency on a visa tied either to employment or to property ownership, or to the sponsorship of a family member who holds one of those two things. Remove the employer, remove the property, remove the sponsor, and the legal basis for presence in the country dissolves on a timeline measured in weeks. This is not a flaw in the system. It is a feature of it. The UAE designed its residency framework to give the government precise control over the size and composition of its population, the ability to expand the labor force rapidly during periods of economic growth, and contract it equally rapidly when conditions change. The system works exactly as designed, which means that when millions of people leave, it is not an accident. It is the system operating correctly. And what the system has been doing since 2020, at a volume and in a demographic composition that the government's own economists have described in technical papers that receive essentially no mainstream coverage, is selecting for departure. The category that left first was the one nobody talks about because nobody made a political cause of it. The middle-income expatriate are not the investment banker in the DIFC with a golden visa and a property portfolio, not the construction laborer on a 2-year contract who was always going to rotate back to his home country. The middle. The accountant from Bangalore who had been in Dubai for 11 years, whose children went to a private school in Jumeirah, whose wife had built a small business under her husband's sponsorship, who rented a 3-bedroom apartment in a building he had watched go up from empty land, who had no path to permanent residency regardless of how long he stayed or how much he contributed to the economy he lived inside. This person, multiplied by hundreds of thousands, is the demographic that built Dubai's retail sector, its mid-market hospitality industry, its school system, its medical infrastructure. And this person, faced with a combination of rental increases that outpaced salary growth by a margin that the Dubai Statistics Center's own housing cost index documents clearly, school fee increases that private schools imposed without regulatory constraint, and the permanent structural insecurity of a residency status that could be dissolved by a single email from an HR department, made a calculation. The calculation was not emotional, it was financial and actuarial. and for a significant number of people who made it between 2020 and 2024, the answer that came out was not Dubai. The rental numbers are in the public record. The Dubai Land Department publishes transaction data on a quarterly basis. Between 2020 and 2024, average residential rents in Dubai increased by between 40 and 60%, depending on the district and the property type, with some areas recording increases substantially above that range. Salaries in the same period did not move at the same rate. The UAE has no minimum wage for most categories of private sector worker, no mandatory salary indexation mechanism, and no collective bargaining framework that would give employees structural leverage against the inflationary pressure on their cost of living. The gap between what Dubai costs to live in and what Dubai pays its middle-income residents to live there widened faster between 2020 and 2024 than in any comparable period since the 2008 crisis. The people who felt that gap most acutely were not the people at the top of the income distribution, whose compensation adjusted upward with the market, and not the people at the bottom, whose accommodation costs are often partially subsidized by employers. They were the people in the middle, earning salaries that were fixed in contracts negotiated before the inflation arrived, watching their disposable income compress month by month toward a threshold below which Dubai stops making economic sense as a place to conduct a life. Arjun Sharma is not a name that appears in any government report. He is a composite of a type of departure that occurred thousands of times between 2021 and 2023, assembled from documented accounts in expat forums, in community Facebook groups, in the kind of testimony that does not reach journalists, but that accumulates into a pattern legible to anyone willing to read it. He arrived in Dubai in 2012 on a technology sector visa. He changed employers twice, each time renewing his residency without interruption. Chat. By 2019, he was earning a salary that placed him in the upper middle of Dubai's income distribution, renting a two-bedroom apartment in Dubai Silicon Oasis for around 65,000 dirhams annually, sending his daughter to a mid-tier private school, saving enough to return to India once a year and send money home monthly. By 2023, the same apartment was listed at 95,000 dirhams. His daughter's school had raised fees by 18% over 2 years, citing curriculum enhancement. His salary had increased by 8% over the same period. His employer had restructured its regional operations and offered him a contract renewal on terms that reduced his housing allowance component. The arithmetic stopped working. He gave notice in February 2023, packed his family into a container shipment, and returned to Bangalore, where he had bought property in 2018 on the assumption that he would not always be in Dubai, an assumption that the system had, in effect, trained him to hold. He was not angry when he left. He was precise. Dubai had been a calculation, and the calculation had changed. This is not an isolated story. It is the modal story of departure for a specific income cohort in a specific period. The question the UAE government's own technical bodies have been studying is not whether this cohort left. It is what the departure of this cohort means for the service economy they sustained and the tax base, such as it exists in a country with no income tax, that their consumption represented. The Golden Visa, introduced in 2019 and expanded in 2022, was the government's most direct response to the structural insecurity that drives middle-class departure. The program offers 10-year renewable residency to qualifying investors, entrepreneurs, scientists, and specialized talent, detaching their legal status in the country from employment sponsorship and giving them something closer to the residential stability that comparable cities in Europe or North America offer by default. The program is real, and the expansion of its eligibility criteria has been genuine. By 2023, the UAE had issued approximately 150,000 golden visas, according to official government statements. That number, in the context of a total expatriate population of approximately 9 million people, represents coverage of less than 2% of the non-citizen resident base. The other 98% remain on the standard visa framework, where departure remains the rational response to a sufficient shift in the economic variables. Have you ever lived somewhere on terms that you knew structurally were temporary and watched how that knowledge shaped every decision you made about whether to invest in the place you were living? The official truth that the title of this video references is not a single document or a single statement. It is the aggregate of what UAE government bodies have published, in technical language, in data releases, in policy documents, and in the economic analysis produced by the Dubai Future Foundation and the UAE Ministry of Economy, about the structural challenge of converting a transient expatriate population into a resident base with the kind of long-term commitment that sustains the consumer economy, the real estate market, and the civic infrastructure of a modern city. Those documents exist. They are not secret. They use language like population stability, long-term residency incentives, and human capital retention in ways that, read carefully, constitute an official acknowledgment that the current system produces the departure pattern this video is describing. The government knows. It has known for years. The golden visa is evidence that it knows. The challenge is that the solution the government has implemented reaches 2% of the problem it is trying to solve. The deeper structural issue, the one that none of the policy documents address directly, because addressing it directly would require re-examining the foundational architecture of how the UAE has organized its relationship with the people who live inside it, is permanence. Dubai cannot retain people it has structurally designed to be impermanent. The visa system, the absence of a pathway to citizenship for the overwhelming majority of long-term residents, the employer-tied sponsorship model that makes a person's legal right to be in the country contingent on a private sector employment relationship, these are not incidental features of Dubai's governance framework. They are central to it. They give the government control over population composition that no democratic city with a permanent resident base could maintain. They also give every middle-income expatriate a rational incentive to hedge their commitment to Dubai, to rent rather than buy in categories below the golden visa threshold, to maintain home country ties, to keep the option of departure permanently available. The system optimizes for flexibility. Flexibility and permanence are not compatible objectives. The millions who have left did not leave because Dubai failed them. Many of them would not use that language. They left because the system that governed their presence there was always designed with departure in mind. The exit was not a malfunction. It was the intended output of a framework built for a different purpose than retention. The city that reinvented itself by making arrival easy has not yet solved the harder problem, making staying worth it. And that problem does not have a visa category. If you left Dubai after years of living there, or if you are currently doing the math about whether to stay, tell us in the comments what the number was that changed the calculation.